Hello everyone, it is Labor Day, but it is 1:30 in the morning on Labor Day. And we have just gotten through a hellish heat wave today. It got up to 114 where I live. I know that one of the outlying cities in LA County, which is Woodland Hills, got up to I think 124, and I don't know, Palm Springs, which is to the east of me, I don't know, about 80 miles maybe, and they got up to 126. Of course, Palm Springs gets pretty high temperatures anyways, but for us to have 113, 114 is really unusual. And I didn't even turn on the lights in the apartment until 6 o'clock because I just tried to keep everything as quiet and dark as possible, and I did have to turn on my AC earlier than normal, but they wanted us to keep it at no lower than 78, so I turned it on to 78, but you know, 113, 114, after a while it's like 100 degrees in here, even with the AC, which is not a great AC. So, needless to say, I have not crocheted because I don't want anything hot. I don't want to be touching yarn right now. Just too hot to touch yarn. Yesterday was like 100 and, I think 110. And then tomorrow's supposed to be in the upper 90s, so actually it's going to cool down about 15 degrees and be in the upper 90s. But right now it is 1:35 in the morning. It's still 79 degrees, and it's only going to get down to 77 tonight. But that's an improvement over last night, where I don't think it got under like 88 or 89 degrees. Anyways. Crazy. So, yeah, I haven't gotten a whole lot done. But I thought, well, I'll go ahead and put up this video that was sent to me by another YouTuber who used to follow my channel, who happens to be a guy. I said it was a girl, but you know, it was a 50-50 chance. I didn't know. So, anyways, he sent it to me, and it's a video on making English toffee. Now, before I put this video up, I have a couple of caveats. Number one, make sure you have 2 pans. One that you pour the chocolate into, and then another one that's the same size that you put on top, and then you flip it so that the toffee flips into the second one. And you'll see that in the video. Also, after you pour the toffee out, and it's got to cool a little bit before you put the chocolate on, otherwise the chocolate, it's just too molten and the chocolate will just sink into it, and that's not what you want. So do a tap test with the back of a spoon, and you should just tap the toffee, and if it sounds like it's getting hard, then it's okay to put the chocolate chips on. They won't sink in. And once you put the chocolate chips on the top to melt, then you want to cover it with that second tray so that the residual heat will melt the chocolate, and then you can spread the chocolate. Now, the other caveat, I should say, is that I have not been real successful in the last 6 years in making English toffee. Ever since I moved out here, and I don't have my pot that I used to make it in, yeah, it's just been kind of hit and miss, and finally I've just given up. I haven't made it for a while, and I keep thinking I'm going to make it, and it's going to be perfect, and it just is not perfect. I mean, I've just completely lost my English toffee mojo. So, you should also not expect, you can hope, but don't expect that it's going to come out perfect the first time, because candy making is a finicky art and it just takes practice, and I ruined a lot of batches before I got it right. And then after that, boy, I could whip out like 4 batches a night, make like 16 pounds a night of English toffee, and people really loved it. It was just like almond roca. It just was gorgeous. So anyhow, without further ado, here is this very old, from 2007, a video on making English toffee. Hello everyone, and welcome to Making English Toffee with Signature Sweet Shop, and yours truly, Miss Truly. Alright, to begin making English toffee, I've cut up 3 cups of butter, and this is salted butter, not unsalted. We're not going to be adding any salt to the recipe, so that's why we're using salted butter. Then we're going to want 3 cups of sugar. We're going to want a couple of cups of chocolate chips. These are semi-sweet. And then we're going to need about 3 cups of roasted but unsalted and crushed almonds. And here is our secret ingredient, liquid lecithin. So you're going to want a heavy stock pot. You will also need a very good candy thermometer. Now, it doesn't have to be an expensive one. You can just go to your grocery store and buy one. This one was about $5 or $6. And you're going to need to cook your toffee up to about 294 degrees. You're going to want to butter your pan. Like I said, we've got a 13 by 18 inch pan, so you want to make sure it's liberally covered on the bottom. We're starting to melt our butter, and we're going to put in the sugar even before the butter is completely melted, because we want them to emulsify together. And just pour in all your sugar. So that's 3 cups of sugar to 3 cups of butter. We're just going to emulsify them together. And you don't have to put your candy thermometer in yet, because you've got a long ways to go. But as soon as the butter gets completely melted, then you can put your candy thermometer on. And you will have to stir it constantly, but you don't have to stir it vigorously. Now you're going to notice that your butter and your sugar might be a little bit separated, but once you get it up to about 200 degrees, they're going to come together just fine. And also, you don't want to use a very expensive butter. I don't recommend Plugra butter because it's too high in butter fat. You want to just use this regular store brand butter. In this case, we have used salted butter. So you don't need to add any extra salt to the recipe. And as you can see, it's almost come together, and we haven't put the candy thermometer on yet. Butter's not quite melted. So you want to add about 1.5 teaspoons of liquid lecithin. And what that's going to do is that is going to keep the toffee from getting too hard. It's going to have a softer, brittle crunch to it. And just stir that in. Stir it in the early stages, even before you put the candy thermometer on. And I think it's time to put the thermometer in. Now what's very important is that the ball at the end does not touch the bottom of the pan. That will give you a false reading. You need to keep at least the distance of the thickness of the spoon between the bottom of the pan and the bottom of the thermometer. It's already emulsified together, and it's not even 150 degrees. So that's good. Well, we've just passed the 200 mark. We are actually now at about 210. And it's starting to bubble nicely, and some color is starting to come up from the bottom. Some of that goldeny amber color that we're going to be looking for later. So it's just starting to change color. Now we're at 250 degrees, and as you can see, it's quite foamy, and that's good. We've got about 45 more degrees to go before we're done. And it's cooking on a low to medium heat. You don't want to turn it up too high because you may cook it too rapidly and not cook it thoroughly. And the whole process really from beginning to end is only going to take you about 30 minutes. Here we are, it just passed 275. At this point you're going to have to watch it very closely because the temperature is going to rise very rapidly. And as you can see, it's doing what they call smoking. It's actually not steam coming out so much as it is just puffs of like smoke from the bottom. So you're going to want to watch it very closely at this point because we are very close. And right now the temperature is at 285, so we've got about 10 degrees left to go. As you can see, the color is approximately the color of brown paper bags. Okay, we just reached the magic number. We're going to take it off this burner and put it on a cool burner. We'll remove our thermometer. And before we pour it out, we're going to add in 2/3 of a cup of chopped, unsalted, and crushed almonds. That will help with the cooling process to get that started. Okay, now we're going to pour out our beautiful toffee mixture. This is perfectly done. And it's kind of like lava at this point, so be very careful because it will not just burn you, it will melt you. We're just going to spread it through the pan. It's not real spreadable, but we can kind of encourage it, let's say, into where we want it to go. Alright, and that's going to be it for about 10 minutes. We're going to let it just sit and cool down a little bit before we add the nuts and the chocolate. Now we're going to sprinkle on the chocolate chips. Now these chips start out tempered, that's the way they always come from the factory, but because we're not melting them at the right temperature, basically we're going to be dealing with untempered chocolate in the end product, but that's alright, don't worry about that. So we're just going to sprinkle it around on the surface until we get a fairly good covering. And then we're not going to do anything to them. We're going to let the heat of the toffee, which is cooled enough now, we're going to let the heat just melt the chocolate. And as soon as they're melted, we're going to spread them around. As you can see, all of our chips have melted nicely. And now I'm just going to spread them around. I don't have an offset spatula, but that would probably help if you had one. So as you can see, just grab the chips and start spreading. They're melted. Now, I don't really have a set amount of nuts that I've crushed because we're going to put them on very thick and very liberally. So don't worry if you have several cups of nuts laid on the top because after we dump it out, later, most of this will get returned to us. But for right now, we're going to just sprinkle it on very liberally. And we don't just want the nuts to lay there passively. We're actually going to pound them into the chocolate. Now, you don't have to pound very hard, but just press the nuts in. This helps your chocolate to absorb more nuts. Because we're working with untempered chocolate, that means that the chocolate's never really going to set up right. So in order to get it to set up firm again, after it cools to room temperature, you're going to want to refrigerate it for a couple of hours and before you take it out and break it up. And we're going to be showing you that process and how easy it is in just a moment. Also, I wanted to say that if you don't have the 13 by 18 trays like I do, you can also work with something like non-stick Reynolds wrap and line your pan with that, and then just pop out the whole Reynolds wrap whenever you're done, and you'll just pull the toffee right out. And now, let's go to removing the toffee from the pan. Alright, I'm going to show you how to flip and get the toffee out of the pan. We're going to put another matching pan on top of it. And then we're just going to flip it like this. And as you can see, the whole thing comes out in one piece. Alright, I'm going to show you a way to break it up. We're just going, and notice we have a towel down here, and that's just to catch some of the loose nuts. So we're just going to start with one break, and then you just want to break it up like this and just continue on doing it like that. Doesn't that look yummy? And that's our lesson on English toffee for the day. I hope you've enjoyed this session with Signature Sweet Shop, and I'll look forward to seeing you the next time. Bye-bye. So, I hope that was a little insightful, and I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.